Folks, I have a question here and it's a good question. You know what? I don't think I'm going to even try to pronounce your name because I think I might offend you. My middle name's Kumar. So Kumar asks, what would you prefer, the Canon R8 or the Sony A7C slash A7 III? Okay, that is a really good question. And I don't have the A7C here, but we could take a look at it. Wait for it. On paper. It's so stupid. I'm so sorry. Now, before we even start, I know people get all strung out about this sort of thing, Canon versus Sony, and I just want to say up front, y'all, it's not that important. We can all be friends. One of my best friends named Jeff is a big time Sony guy. He has a Burmese mountain dog named Ernie who's a Canon guy. They get along. I mean, Ernie's a little upset that Jeff cut his nuts off, but you know what? He's more relaxed. So, but they live in the same home. Ernie knows what he's doing, and Jeff is fussing around with his. I mean, really, it doesn't matter. But in all seriousness, what I am looking for specifically in this camera made this choice easy for me. Okay, I was looking for a travel slash vlogging camera, and when I say vlogging, I don't mean like a genre. My big channel, I end up doing vlogging type work a lot. I'll either go on trips or go into like a barbecue restaurant. I have a barbecue channel, and do reviews, and so I end up picking up the camera and pointing it at myself quite a bit. So there's certain things that I knew that I needed, and I'm going to go over that today, comparing to the A7C. Now, I'm not even going to talk about the A7 III, and the reason is not because it's a bad camera. It's actually a very, very good camera, but this is kind of a smaller, just updated version of it, the guts inside. The A7 III, there's better options in the price range than the A7 III now, so I'll go over that. I'll go over that later, but for now, I'm going to do a direct comparison between these two cameras, and I'm going to base this on, again, the needs that I have for a travel camera, right? So I got a list, because you can't do this without a list. Okay, so right out of the bat, I broke my own rule. I really wanted to use LP-E6 batteries, and the reason is because that's the main Canon battery that most Canon cameras use in this kind of realm, in this space, this price range, whatever. But I was willing to go with any battery I already had, and I don't have either of these batteries. Now, I will say, if I was worried about battery life, this camera, the A7C, way better. Way better. And I am worried about battery life, but in this case, for my needs, I didn't want to start another brand of battery because it gets confusing and it gets expensive, and I wanted to be able to reuse what I had. Neither one of these cameras gives me that option, so it's kind of a wash. But if you're starting from scratch, Sony's better because this has a much better battery. So now, small body. Both of these bodies are really small. This one's a little lighter, but it's so close. I would just call this a wash. They're both like tiny cameras. You know what I mean? Flip around screen. I like the screens that do this. No, where am I? Okay, that do this. I want them to do this. I like this. I like this. It's hard to do this upside down or looking down. I mean. This is what you want. I don't like the screens that flip up. The reason I don't like the screens that flip up is if you put your microwave, if you put your microphone, not a microwave. If you put a microwave up here, you're doing it wrong. But if you put your microphone up here and then you flip the screen back, it is blocked by the microphone. So that was super important to me. Both of these cameras have that. Good. We're doing good. Autofocus, best in the business. Both of them, it's, again, this is what they do. Panasonic's finally gotten on board with this. A lot of companies, like, it was surprising how long it took them to get on board the autofocus train. But both of these are just great at this, and it'll never be a problem. So we're still at a wash here. So this is where they start to differentiate. And again, this is for me and my particular situation. Okay, color science. Now, I'm not factoring into this comparison some of the preferential things, okay? So there's a lot of like touchy-feely stuff about the difference between Canon and Sony, particularly with the image quality. I've had Sony cameras in the past that definitely looked yellow. I also have a ZV-1 that looks great, but it looks different than Canon. Canon, I would say that the ZV-1, which I know is very comparable in color science to this camera, the ZV-1 looks real. Like, it looks like what I'm filming. Canon does not look real. Despite how often people say the most realistic colors, it's not. It's better than real. It's flattering. And the problem I have is not that I prefer one color science over the other. It's that I want them to match. So if I'm messing around with my R5, I want to be able to cut in R8 footage without having to make a lot of changes to that. And I'm doing that, like I can do that with my 90D. Is it the same? I'm pointing at this because I'm shooting on a 90D. Is it the same? No, but it definitely looks like it's in the same family. So that, for me, was a point for Canon because it saves me a lot of time in post. The next one, again, 4K 60. Now, we've established in my last video that the R8 does overheat in 4K 60, but at least it does 4K 60. You know, with the Sony, it may not overheat if you put it in the high setting, but it most definitely doesn't do 4K 60 at all. I'm always going to be able to get 10 or 15 minutes of 4K 60. I use this a lot. I mean, everything I record, especially when I'm away from the house doing some of these travel stuff, everything is in 4K 60 because I always like the option to be able to cut in or slow everything down. You would be surprised how often that comes into play. So, and for me, like, this is basically the thing that ruled out the Sony for me. If you want 4K 60 with Sony, at least up until a few months ago, you had to go with I think it was the A7 III or the FX3 or something even more expensive. Those are $4,000 cameras. Again, they're better options. We'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, this was a big one for me, and this made this an easy choice, at least to start with. I'm trying this out. I'm still evaluating it, but this is where I am right now. Now, the other thing, and this is just being in the freaking golden handcuffs. Total cost, I mean, for the Canon R5, I've already got the lenses. It's going to be $1,500, but that's it. You know, I don't have to pay anything else because I have all the lenses. With the Sony, it's $17.99. Right now, it's on sale on Amazon though, so $15.99 I think. I'll put links to all this below so you can go check it out. But also, you know, I'm going to buy lenses. I've got to have at least one, and so that would probably be that. Oh, that ultra wide Tamron that's I think $799. And then if I get one, you know, I'm gonna want it. I'm gonna grow another lens system, and this was a really, really big one. I could have just labeled this ecosystem, but it boils down to, like, I kind of made a promise to myself until I'm ready to dump Canon altogether, and I'm not at that point. I'm happy for the most part with everything, but some of the company choices. I'm not ready to jump lens systems yet. So if I buy this camera, it's going to be $1,800. Again, maybe $1,500 today if you're really shopping. Plus at least one lens. If I get one lens, I'm going to get more lenses. And before I know it, I'm going to be $5,000 in on lenses 3 years from now. And that's not even joking around. Like, you could do that with two lenses. Really nice lenses could easily cost $5,000. So yeah. And then if you have the lenses, you can end up buying more of the cameras. And it's just like, yeah, it's true what they say. Like, they get you into the ecosystem. You're stuck. It's like Apple. Now, most of the time, I don't mind being stuck. It's just when I get frustrated, I'm never frustrated enough to make that jump. Now, if you're starting from scratch, okay? If you're starting from scratch, I would say look very, very closely. Maybe not at this camera, but they just came out with the ZV-E1, which is basically it's a vlogger's full frame A7S3. That looks really interesting to me. It's probably going to have some overheating issues, But that would be the one I would look at. And then if you need something that isn't going to have overheating issues, the FX30. I was just talking to this guy today, Roving Cyclops. Can y'all see that? No, you can't see that. I got to put that in the thing. And we were having a nice, pleasant exchange about the differences between Canon and Sony. And even he says he really likes his Sony cameras, you know, but there's issues there too. I mean, you can see this, but that there is no perfect camera. Casey from Cameras Conspiracies is going to have a job for a really long time. Every brand has its own issues, and right now I'm kind of married to this one. I'm not unhappily married. It's just it's like any marriage. It's like I can't pick this up. It's like any marriage. There's things you like and there's things you don't like. Now, 2 honorable mentions that I'm going to bring out here because this is important. Sony. Oh, can't see. Let me move these up. Sony has image stabilization in this camera. It sucks. But what they do have going for them is something called Catalyst Browse. Catalyst Browse is so freaking cool. It's the most wonderful pain in the butt to use you'll ever use. I mean, you have to set it up where you have to set it up with a super high shutter speed, and then you have to run it through like their Catalyst Browse software before you ever use the footage. And it's the workflow's a nightmare, but oh my gosh, the stabilization is amazing. I have it on my ZV-1. I've used it several times. It's glorious if you have the time to mess with it. I don't know about you, but I just want to say I'm not joking around. It's a pain in the butt to use. Also, it's amazing. So, as far as the cameras themselves, the Canon doesn't have in-body image stabilization. Like I said, this does, but it's really not worth the darn. So you're really going lens on lens stabilization, and I found that this is good enough at least with the kit lens, which is what I mostly used it on. If I hold it real steady, I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? Like I would love it if it had IBIS, but it doesn't. But I still find this usable. But I'm gonna give the honorable mention nod to Sony because that Catalyst Browse is available, not for the in-body image stabilization because it's not good. It's not good. Now, the thing about the ZV-1 is it has this thing called active image stabilization, something like that. It's the cropped in setting. So as soon as you turn it on, you know, you crop in, and you lose some much needed wide angle, especially on the ZV-1. But oh my gosh, that's great too. So, but for some reason they didn't put it in this particular camera. So, I don't understand Sony's choices sometimes, but I don't understand any of their choices sometimes. But it is where we are, or it is what it is. Now, the second one, honorable mention, is the Canon ergonomics, and I've said this before. It just feels like a glove for your soul. I mean, it really does. All the buttons fall in the right place. Everything. This is just. It's just fun to hold. It's just fun to hold. I mean, it's magnificent. It just calls to you. It says, "Hey, play with me." You know, like let's go make some movies together. You know, and I've held these at Best Buy, and they're magnificent pieces of hardware. I would even say, especially the new ones, are better technically, spec-wise for sure, but they're not fun to hold. And again, this is why it's an honorable mention. That's a preferential thing. A lot of people don't care about that. You know, I mean, my buddy Jeff. I mean, it's important to his dog Ernie, but Jeff doesn't care. Half the time, his stuff is on tripods, so it doesn't matter to him. So that is that's why I put it in the honorable mention category, but it is something worth noting. Okay. It is a thing. It is a thing. So there's that. Again, if you're a Sony person, especially if you're just starting out and you're leaning towards going Sony, I would say do it. Again, I'm not a fanboy here. Ernie will be upset, but he'll get over it. He'll get over it. But I think they're pushing the industry. They're making Canon get better. They're making Canon evolve. And I like that. The other thing is right now, these are the two brands. These are Sony and Canon are the two brands that I would definitely stick to. A lot of the other brands, the market is just shrinking and getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and companies are going out of business or getting sold off. And these two are the big dogs. They're the ones that are going to be around, like, they're going to be the last men standing. So keep that in mind. And again, the ZVE1 is probably a better choice than this right now. It's only a few $100s more, and it's full frame. And if you want more of a workhorse cinema style camera that's also small, the FX30 is worth looking at. For now, I'm sticking with this at least through the 30-day trial period, or return policy period, because again, I think this does more in my list. So hope that makes sense. Keep making suggestions, y'all, and I'll keep trying to answer them. I really appreciate the comments, and that's it.